Hi, this is Dora DeLellis with ThoughtsOnTheMoney.com. Welcome back to my vlog where I discuss money issues and offer practical money management tips. I'm flashing back again to 2008. In late October 2008, fear had deeply set in. A writer from Newsweek chose to report on the edge of positivity, but really there was none to be found. Everywhere you turned, there was more bad news. Take a look at these headlines and articles. Even the run on foreclosed properties had its downside. The article reports that foreclosed owners often left feces on doorknobs and banisters. Lovely. Then the ownership society that was promised by President Bush went down in flames and basically taking the rest of the country with it. Let's move on to today's first topic. Today's first topic is asset diversification. I promised to talk about asset diversification, and I know you've heard of this before. It's not always the most exciting thing to talk about, but what is exciting is knowing that your hard-earned investment portfolio won't be wiped away if someone on Wall Street makes a mistake. My favorite one is from Tony Robbins' book called Money, Master the Game, and it's based on 4 economic cycles: prosperity, recession, inflation, and deflation. And to put these 4 cycles into quadrants, you would be looking at periods of economic growth or periods where economic growth is on the downturn, and 2 inflationary periods, inflation rising and inflation decreasing. So where economic growth is rising, you would want to take advantage of stocks and corporate bonds. That's where the best return is. However, if economic growth is falling, you may want to invest in TIPS, which are Treasury inflation-protected securities. Where inflation is rising, the best place to have your investments is in commodities and gold. And if inflation is falling, you would be looking for Treasury bonds. I matched my portfolio in each of the scenarios and found that I'm deficient in commodities and the TIPS category. So that's where I've been focusing my effort over the past year or so. However, I'm not the greatest at reallocation, and I really like what I have in terms of stock investments right now. So I like using new money to add to my portfolio to round out those categories. While stocks have been doing really well lately, no one should think that the good times will last forever. So it's time to think of some alternatives. I found a great article on wisebread.com, and the link to it is in my blog post. They listed some alternatives to gold and commodities and alternative investments that will round out technology stocks and stocks that are highly correlated with the S&P 500. Here are their suggestions: utilities, materials, telecommunications, energy, consumer staples, and small and mid-cap stocks. These categories tend to not be highly correlated with the S&P 500 and will generally stay stable or will not be driven by a downturn in the economy. Consumer staples are basic needs that everyone has for their household. So that's an example of something that will tend to keep income on a steady level regardless of the economy. After losing a large chunk of my portfolio in the 2008-2009 downturn, I learned a hard lesson about asset diversification. I did have a strategy at the time. I wanted to invest highly in REITs for the high dividends and have the dividends be reinvested and accumulate and accrete over time. And that worked out fine for about 2 or 3 years until the real estate bubble burst. So because I was heavily invested in that one category, it really took a chunk out of my IRA. So I won't be doing that again. And my suggestion to you is to look at all these different categories. there are examples of funds of each of the categories that I mentioned that are listed in my blog post. Some are specific individual stocks, and many are index funds. So take a look. Today's second topic is extreme money scripts. Money scripts is a concept developed by Dr. Brad Klontz, who combined the fields of personal finance and psychology. And I find this the most interesting because it's not a person's money decisions or money behavior, it's the underlying thought process that's driving those actions. Everyone has a money script developed throughout their lifetime, from their family, from society, from their neighborhood, friends, teachers, and any of their outside environment. But that money script carries into their adulthood and basically drives all of their money actions. Of the top 10 most common, I'm going to speak to the first 5. Number 1 is more money will make things better. And as Dr. Phil says, you don't solve money problems with money. And what that means is that a person's money skills will play themselves out whether a person has a low amount of money or a high amount of money. So when someone feels a shortage, it's really their lack of money management skills that's at play here. So if the person gets more money, they'll still apply those same poor money management skills. So it's not the amount of money that's important here. It's the lack of money management skills. Number 2 is that money is bad. And this is having contempt for money. I knew someone that lived this one to a T. He had contempt for rich people, for people that had money, and for people that spent money. And people that feel this way are unwittingly sabotaging any potential financial progress that they do have. And it's amazing to see this happen in real life. But they do actually make progress and then backpedal. Make progress and backpedal. Number 3, I don't deserve money. This one typically stems from low self-esteem, even when someone does have an adequate amount of money. Number 4 is I deserve to spend money. And this is to the opposite extreme. People who feel that they need to constantly spend money or that they deserve to spend money on themselves and everyone in their life. And this is carried to such an extent, especially in today's society, that it's currently a national epidemic. A study done by the U.S. Department of Labor found that 59% of all baby boomers are either spending more than they make or living hand to mouth. And that's really very sad. So this I deserve to spend money really needs to be contained so that people manage their funds in a more sensible way. Number 5 is there never will be enough money. And this is really very limiting, and it leads to people living a life of deprivation. Dr. Brad Klontz also wrote another book called The Wisdom of Ebenezer Scrooge, and the Financial Wisdom of Ebenezer Scrooge. And he pinpointed all of the self-limiting thoughts of the main character and how they played out into his life. He used 1 piece of coal for heat, he wouldn't pay his workers, and he was very miserly. And it really stemmed from his belief that there will always be a lack. And that can lead to an extremely detrimental life of deprivation and underspending, which is one of the other extremes of money management. So my question for you today is, how are you managing your money scripts? Do you hear yourself saying any of these things? The good news is that they can be changed, but you have to acknowledge the behavior first and figure out how to turn the ship around. So join me next time when I discuss fiduciary issues and the recent fiduciary rules and some low, medium, and high risk investments. Please leave feedback and questions on thoughtsonthemoney.com. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.